The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamite, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. It is Friday, May 2nd, you guys. And today is School Lunch Hero Day today, you guys.
She's a school lunch hero.
Yeah. Shout out to all those moms that put together brown paper bags for their kids. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
All the sandwich making heroes out there every day. Much love to them. It's also National Space Day today, you guys.
I like the SpaceX launches in my front yard. It's like really cool.
Yeah, right? Shout out to Elon and all the team over there. Got the stuff going on. It's also, speaking of blasting off into space, it's also National Life Insurance Day. You like that one, Dr. Mark?
Good day to take a life insurance policy out. Is that right?
Apparently, they're all on sale today.
Oh, boy.
That's and it is also National Truffle Day.
Like the Truffle Shuffle?
That's what I was thinking too, Jenny Beth. The Truffle Shuffle. The Truffle Shuffle. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Jenny
Beth, are you driving?
She's Ubering.
No, I'm riding.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's.
We wouldn't want to think that you have a steering wheel there.
That would be hilarious.
I mean,
being clutched.
She was doing all those
doing
things.
the steering wheel with her knees and
texting and driving.
I mean, in all fairness, I've seen her do it. So you know what I mean. She's a multitasker. She's, you know what I'm saying. I don't know why you guys are trying to downplay what women can do. Yeah, you guys didn't see that one coming, huh, Jesse?
Now that was a good spin.
Thank you.
Who's in the driver's seat? That's what I want to know.
Oh, you know, Mark, some things are better left unknown. You know what I mean?
Yeah, probably.
Good morning, Dr. T. Welcome. How are you today?
Good. It could be an autonomous vehicle, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You guys do have those up there in the city. I would never get in one of those in a million years, though. I'm just not with all those cameras everywhere like that. It just freaks me out.
Oh, it works so much better than humans. So much better.
Really?
Humans are horrible drivers. Yes.
Well, I mean, I guess up there.
About any day.
I mean, in San Francisco, I could see that.
The error rate for fully self-driving vehicles is way lower than humans.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would reduce LA. It would reduce LA traffic too.
A lot.
Yeah.
Really?
But that's what's causing the traffic. Humans.
Yeah, because they all drive
erratic driving of humans. Yeah.
I wouldn't. No. That's not what causes traffic. Erratic driving. What causes traffic is slow people driving, and there's a lot of people that just sit at lights for no purpose and like take 10 car lengths in front of them when they stop at lights and like for no reason.
Yeah. Exactly.
Now all of those people to me shouldn't have driver's licenses in the first place.
No, just put a robot there. They'll drive correctly.
Anybody who's ridden with you, Jason, knows that anybody around you shouldn't have a driver's license.
Most of those people should not have a driver's. I agree with you, Jesse. Most of those people should not. They are not efficient in driving. They should not. You know what I'm saying? Let alone proficient.
Nick Bradley says that you're the cause of LA traffic. It is quite the opposite.
Well,
I have seen Jason somehow blaze his way through complete parking lots on the 405 and get through it at 90 miles an hour without stopping anyways. It's insane what he can do.
yes, thank you, Jesse. I'm probably one of the most efficient drivers I know out in the streets. That's 100% facts.
If everybody drove like Jason, there would be no traffic.
That is true. That is true. Shout out to Jesse Barney
No,
today.
they're definitely with. Jason is the reason for all the honking, the noise pollution in LA. Every honking.
Definitely the honking.
Is
That's
fair.
The cause of honking.
I don't have a problem with that. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I'm down with all that. Anyways, thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast, and please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above and down below to see exactly where we live on the internet, and we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, X, Instagram, Facebook, Kick, as well as on our very own website at www.high9news.com. So welcome to everyone joining us from any one of those panels. And we are kicking it off with our new co-host, Miss Jenny Beth Dills. She's the founder of Kind Cannabis and of Justice Served, a 501c3 that helps justice-impaired individuals get their lives back on track. And I think she has some congratulatory news for everyone viewing today. What do you have for us, Jenny Beth?
It hasn't been officially announced yet, but you guys, I think I won. I won the Rockstar Karaoke. So, well, when it's officially announced, I'll show it to you. But,
amazing.
I have some less than great news because this is kind of, I have some par for Chicago course news. Because Chicago police are investigating 2 Molotov cocktail attacks targeting cannabis dispensaries on the city's north side. The first incident happened April 19th in Portage Park, and the second occurred Sunday in the North Center neighborhood. In both cases, the suspect broke a window with a hammer before throwing a lit Molotov cocktail into the building. Police described the man as about 5'9", short king, between 190 and 240 pounds, dressed in all black and wearing a face mask, because of course he was. The cannabis dispensary in Portage Park is closed until further notice, while the North Central location, the cannabis company, remains open. Anyone with information is asked to contact Chicago police or submit an anonymous tip at cpdtip.com. Well, what do you guys say? I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I love that it happened the day before 420. That makes me think it's a competitor. They were like, "Yeah, no, not today." I'll go back to you guys.
As soon as I saw that, Jenny Beth, I definitely thought it was a competitor that did this, and I was like, "Holy cow!" Someone took a play out of Andrew Kramer's playbook. That's all I could think of. I was like, "Wow!" I wonder who Andrew Kramer is talking to, and I wonder if ultimately if they will link this crime back to him. For those of you that don't know, Andrew Kramer was someone that was ultimately convicted of having people throw Molotov cocktails through his competition here in Los Angeles County back in the day.
Oh.
Yeah. So.
Whoops.
What do you guys say about this, Dr. T? You know, they got a lot of Molotov cocktails up there in San Francisco they be throwing around just in the streets.
I don't think so. This is horrible. This is horrible. Where's the love? That's all I've got to say.
Yeah, I agree. You know what I mean? I agree. That doesn't sound like there's a lot of love going on in Chicago. The city of brotherly love, isn't it supposed to be?
No, that's Philly.
Oh, Philly. Oh, my bad. All right.
Yeah. Let's try it.
Oh,
Chicago's the
super ratchet over there going on out there.
City.
Yeah, the Windy City. That's right. Thank you, Dr. Mark. Dr. Mark, you have any thoughts on this? Making Molotov cocktails the most efficient way?
No. I don't have any thoughts on it.
I mean, it's crazy that it's just damage causing. Like there's no robbery involved or anything like that. It's just like destroy this place.
Well, here's the thing too: is if it can be very, very serious charges for throwing Molotov cocktails into buildings, especially if those buildings are multi-tenant in the sense that they're a commercial space and also residential up top or on the side or anything else like that. Because then the charge increases to firebombing on a building that has has inhabitants in place, which is a whole nother set of charges that can come to this individual. So,
I mean, yeah, this just sounds like where is it close to like where the O Block is and all that stuff in Chicago?
no, Jenny, I see Jenny shaking her head. Jenny shaking her head. No,
not in that area of town.
I don't know.
Sounds like it's got to be motivated by something else. Yeah, like the competition is probably a good point, but it could be something else. But it's something where somebody just wants to destroy the property. It's not. They're not trying to get anything out of it other than some kind of revenge or something.
Can you imagine, Jesse, that on a future episode of High at 9 News, we're covering a story where where police have linked a Molotov cocktail into a cannabis dispensary, and it was all orchestrated by an MSO?
I mean, first of all, almost calling him Jesse Beth was hilarious.
Yeah,
but
that was
second
funny.
of all, would also be, I mean, we've never seen a cannabis operator torch their own shit for an insurance claim before, have we?
Oh, that's true too. That very good point, Jenny Beth. That is a very high on the probability scale right there. You know what I mean?
Or a disgruntled employee making $15 an hour as a bud tender.
That could happen too. One that got fired and was mad that they got fired for whatever reason or reprimanded or something is like, you know what? Screw this place. Boom, I'll teach you. You know. When I had the store on Haight Street, I had people always threaten me and whatnot when they would get mad at me with that they were going to throw a Molotov cocktail in the door, but it never happened. But you know, whatever.
Why were they upset?
They were upset because I wouldn't give people their way. You know what I mean? You know, they were mad that, you know what I'm saying? They wanted me to do this and I didn't want to do it, or they're asking me to give them something and I didn't want to give it up.
Booth, Jason?
No, I never did that unless they asked for booth. I did sell Bammer weed back then, you know what I'm saying? But that was you know, it was price competitive. I was doing 4 grams for $10. You know what I mean? I had the fattest 10 sacks on the block back then.
Let's go. 4 grams for $10.
Yeah, winning, right, Jesse?
For sure. Back in the day, let's
all
go.
Day.
Even if it was swag weed, let's do it.
Oh, it was straight up Bammer weed, straight up. But it was the best Bammer in town.
Brick.
Yeah.
Total brick.
Total brick weed. Yeah. Yep.
The best Bammer weed in town. Just.
Well, fair enough. This was a fun story, and I do want to thank the Cole Memo for sending this story over to us for us to cover it. We do appreciate all the work that you do, the Cole Memo, and thank you for always tuning in and watching and checking this out. And on that, we are going to roll into our first commercial, and we are going to be right back.
Oh man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, I left one, you know? And I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade. And in a GMP certified facility, so you know you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where I'm even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Test it. It's not a name, it's a promise.
Yes, and we are back, you guys. We are back.
Coming up next, we have the High at 9 head honcho, the highest elf on the High at 9 shelf. His tones might be sensitive like nipple tips, but he is not. Jason Beck.
Oh, that was cute, Jenny Beth. That is true. I do have sensitive toes. You know what I'm saying? Sensitive teeth. Yeah. Well, and very ticklish ones, but nonetheless. You know, we talked about this yesterday about this Texas House passing this bill on SB3, but apparently it's not as bad as they were saying in the chat yesterday, you guys. So here's the deal on what they are saying is happening in Texas, because a Texas House panel advances a THC bill with stricter regulations, but no ban for the hemp industry, they say. That's right. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick has called for banning THC products a top priority. The latest draft of the lower chamber's THC regulations bill would allow retailers to continue selling edibles and drinks. A Texas House panel late Wednesday advanced a bill to tighten regulations on Texas consumable hemp industry, setting up the potential clash with Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and the Senate, who are persuading a total ban on THC products. The latest draft of the lower chamber's THC regulation bill would allow retailers to continue selling edibles and drinks, along with low-dose smokable hemp flowers. That would be THCA, you guys. And it would ban vapes and allow counties to vote to ban consumable hemp. The bill calls for a much tighter regulatory system than what exists today. 6 years after the GOP-controlled legislature inadvertently set off the state's booming consumable hemp market, it would require products to be sold in child-resistant packaging that does not resemble popular snacks or otherwise appear marketed to kids, and it would establish an age limit that does not exist under the current law, restricting sales to those 21 and older. That seems pretty commonsensical to me. Sales would also be barred within 1,000 feet of a school or certain other areas frequented by children, and still the restrictions fall well short of the fuel ban on THC products that would be codified under the version of the measure. Senate Bill 3 advanced by the upper chamber in March, and it is also more permissive than an earlier draft floated last month by the House sponsor, Representative Ken King, that would have allowed only THC drinks. Dan Patrick, a Republican who presides over the Senate, has threatened to force an overtime legislative session if lawmakers failed to pass an all-out THC ban. And King, a Canadian Republican who chairs the House Senate Affairs Committee, described his latest draft as a regulatory bill that is substantially different from earlier versions. The subcommittee advanced the bill on a 15-0 vote, and it now heads to the House Calendars Committee, which will decide whether to schedule it for a full floor vote. Since Dan Patrick launched his crusade to ban THC products in December, hemp industry leaders have turned to the House as the bulwark that would, they hope, pass tighter regulations rather than quash the industry altogether. And hemp retailers have largely backed calls for regulations, including in King's latest draft of SB 3, such as restrictions aimed at keeping hemp products out of the hands of minors. The legislation comes in response to more than 8,000 cannabis retailers that have popped up across Texas since 2019, when the GOP-controlled legislature authorized the sale of consumable hemp. That law, passed 1 year after hemp was legalized nationwide, was intended to boost Texas agriculture by allowing the commercialization of hemp containing trace amounts of non-intoxicating delta-9 THC, the psychoactive element in marijuana. While hemp products are not allowed to contain more than 0.3% concentration of delta-9 THC, anything higher is classified as marijuana, and critics say the industry has exploited a loophole that set the 0.3% THC threshold for delta-9 THC, but not other hemp derivatives. These other hemp-derived products still look and taste, sometimes have intoxicating effects similar to the more potent sibling. And just for clarification, I was really excited to see this publication say this. They said hemp and marijuana plants are both cannabis plants. The difference lies in their THC levels. And that's probably the most sensible thing that I've seen someone put out in a paper, you know what I mean, acknowledging the relationship between cannabis and hemp, because after all, it's all THCA at the end of the day, and it's all cannabis sativa L as defined under the Controlled Substances Act. And I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this.
This is great. This is way better than what was going on with Senate Bill 3.
Yeah.
I think I like the way that they said they're going to allow smokable hemp and edibles and disallow vapes, because vapes are one of the places where you can really buy cheap hardware and really just create a poisonous product.
That is very true.
So it's kind of nice. It seems like somebody's a little smart, or as one of the people in the comments said, maybe it's the cigarette industry who's also involved.
I mean, but if the cigarette industry was involved, I mean, the cigarette and tobacco industry is making a lot of money off vapes, so I don't know why they would necessarily be working to ban vapes.
Move. Yeah, that's true. But it is an interesting move, and I wonder where that's coming from. It'd be cool if there was more information about where the anti-vape part of this legislation comes from. It seems interesting to me.
You know, it could possibly be coming from the administration. I don't know if you've seen the commercials in regards with the administration's position on vaping lately, but they definitely are trying to tie it to China manufacturing and saying, you know what I'm saying, protect your kids from this China hardware.
I mean, that's absolutely true.
Mm-hmm.
And we've known for a long time that Chinese hardware is just complete trash. You're getting heavy metals, you're getting plastics, you're getting all kinds of things that are being melted and burned and going into your lungs. It's horrible.
What do you think about this, Dr. T? You're on mute, buddy. You're on mute.
So this is not SB3 we're talking about. This is another one.
So this is basically not SB3. So basically what they're saying is that they're going to create restrictions. They're not going to allow for sales for anyone 21 and younger. So anyone 21 and over could purchase whatever. They're saying, to my understanding, that they don't want to. They want everything to be in a child-proof container, and they also want everything to be non-marketed to kids in that sense. To me, I think that's kind of like a super loosey-goosey kind of thing as far as how that is, you know, portrayed and enforced, and you know what I'm saying, and whatnot. But they also said, to my understanding with how I read this as well, Dr. T, that they would allow counties or cities to decide whether or not they're going to allow for THCA flower to be sold. Ultimately, the state will allow it, but they will give the power to the cities and cities and counties to be able to ban those sales in those jurisdictions.
That's great. Anything that gives more access to patients, I'm a fan of. Whenever I hear the word hemp, though, I cringe because it's a horrible definition. You know, it's like building a house on a bad foundation to talk about cannabis as hemp.
Yep.
But other than that, I'm for this. This is great.
I agree. I think this is great news overall. You know, especially from what we, you know, in the chat yesterday, everyone was like, "Oh, the House just passed SB3 banning all hemp." They were chatting in the chat yesterday saying this, and so I wanted to make sure that we did cover this today and address it. And so it appears that is not the case. And the hemp industry will survive through this, and we'll see where this goes, and we will definitely continue to follow along. You have any thoughts on this, Dr. Mark? Dr. Mark, you with us? Texting? You're on mute, buddy. You're on mute.
Sorry, I'm on mute.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, let's talk about this for a second. So. The marijuana moment tells us that in 2024 there was 11,827 acres of floral hemp grown in the United States, and that yielded 20.8 million pounds of hemp. Right?
Okay.
So if hemp is defined at let's just say that all of that stuff was bred at 0.3%.
Yep.
Right? That's 62,400 pounds of THC. That's a lot of vape pens. Right?
Well, it could be a lot of it could be a lot of everything. It could be a lot of edibles. It could be a lot of diamonds. It could be a lot of things.
And a fair amount of that CBD went into the chemical conversion to Delta 8 and to HHC and to other things. So yeah.
I don't think they might be converting. I don't know if they're converting. I think they're just testing early.
No, so CBD isolate, which is produced as a primary product of hemp production, is just a chemical. It's just a chemical. There's no right. There's no terpenes. There's no other minor cannabinoids. It's just a chemical, and that chemical is being chemically converted into Delta 9. So the point is that even at 0.3%, with the amount of hemp that was grown, what happens to that 62,400 pounds of THC? Right?
Well, I mean,
the brilliant furnaces in Washington, D.C., were they burning hot enough to actually pontificate this?
Well, no, this is Texas. We're talking Texas. This is getting burnt by the hot climate in Texas, Dr. Mark.
I guess my point is being missed here, Jason, which is that even at 0.3%, hemp production produces a lot of THC. How many vape pens can you make with 62,400 pounds of THC?
You can make a lot.
Yeah, I could do that math.
Yeah.
The number is a large number. Right?
Yeah.
So
it's huge.
If people are doing, so what happens is when you harvest a hemp plant, you make a distillate of that hemp. Typically, with most varieties of hemp, you're going to be about 20-to-1 CBD to THC, right? And as you take that distillate now and start crashing out CBD isolate for the CBD market, right, which is now tanked down to about $350 a kilo, you increase the amount of THC in that mother liquor, right? And now what people are claiming is that, Dr. Mark, hemp-derived THC is not just chemically converted. They're doing chromatography, or they're separating out that THC from that hemp, right? The Farm Bill calls that hemp because it's below 0.3. The point is that even at the scale of hemp production today, that's creating more than 62,000 pounds of THC.
Wow.
THC doesn't just, that's a lot, right?
Yeah.
Multiply that by 454, that'll tell you how many grams, and divide that by 2 will tell you how many half-gram pens you can make. The number is a lot. So I guess my point is even at 0.3%, domestic hemp production is producing a lot of THC, and that THC doesn't just go away.
Fair enough. Jenny Beth, you have any thoughts on this?
I mean, it's a lot better than what could have happened, and I think there was a lot of panic attacks that didn't need to happen, and, good for them.
Anyways, shout out to all the people out there in the great state of Texas. We do support you guys in your efforts. We do want to make sure that we get some sensible rules and guidelines down there for your hemp market, and we do want to ensure that the hemp market does live on out there, because it is a booming market out there in Texas, and a lot of people benefit from it. You guys do have a super restrictive cannabis program overall, and if this is the best thing that you guys are going to be able to have, then we want to make sure that you guys maintain your access to it. And speaking after that, we are going to roll right into the man who provides access for probably more patients than anyone walking on the planet. That's right, it's Dr. Gene Talleyrand. He's the founder of the CESC and of Medican, where they have been writing doctors' recommendations for decades upon decades, and that is one of the reasons why he has provided access to so many. And it is none other than Dr. Gene Talleyrand.
Thank you, Jason. Happy Friday, everyone. My story today is from Normal study. Patients with treatment-resistant epilepsy improve following medical cannabis therapy. So the study is from the UK. Patients with refractory epilepsy report sustained improvement in their symptoms following the use of medical cannabis, according to observational data published in the journal Brain and Behavior. Refractory, for those who don't know, means that the seizures recur despite best treatment efforts. About 1/3 of patients with epilepsy have refractory seizures despite treatment. British healthcare providers may prescribe medical cannabis to patients unresponsive to conventional medications. Investigators assessed the use of cannabis-based medicinal products in a cohort of 134 patients with treatment-resistant epilepsy. The study was sponsored by Curaleaf International. Patients were prescribed an oil-based tincture containing 50 milligrams per dropper of full-spectrum CBD, 20 milligrams per dropper of THC, type 1 flower containing 16% THC, or both oil and flower. The results were assessed at 1 month, 3 months, and 6 months. The use of cannabis was associated with epilepsy-specific quality of life changes. The research also reported improvement in anxiety, sleep quality, and general quality of life. Over 96% of study subjects reported no adverse events. This study shows the promising potential of cannabis-based medicinal products as an adjunctive treatment option in the management of treatment-resistant epilepsy, the authors concluded. The results of this study are not surprising. I've evaluated medical cannabis patients in California for over 20 years and seen similar results. Many patients have reported less seizures and better quality of life. So why haven't U.S. physicians reported these results? Why do we need to learn of these results from the UK 20 years later? We don't prescribe cannabis in the U.S., we recommend it. Physicians have restricted access to cannabis, making study difficult. If we reschedule cannabis, U.S. researchers would be able to inform the medical industry that the cannabis works for treatment-resistant epilepsy. Cannabis-naive patients would benefit from cannabis use, improving quality of life, and the cannabis industry. Those who fear rescheduling are running from shadows. They're worried that rescheduling cannabis makes it more restricted. Rescheduling to Schedule III does not mandate a change in current state cannabis programs. It is an incremental step toward less restrictive rules that would help hundreds of thousands of patients. Some stomp their feet, cross their arms over their eyes, and say no to rescheduling. They're afraid rescheduling will prohibit homegrown cannabis. They're afraid the local dispensary will disappear. They're afraid of change. I would like to thank Curaleaf International in the UK for this study. The British have flipped the narrative. Rather than the US, they are now the revolutionaries at the forefront of progress. While the US cannabis industry continues to debate whether rescheduling will hurt their bottom line and the medical industry remains uninformed, patients suffer. What do you think? Is it worth it to reschedule cannabis for results like this?
Oh man.
I had to bring it up, Jason.
I know you did. I think these results are great, but look, it's amazing. We got these results without any rescheduling. So why do we need rescheduling to get these results?
Thanks to the Brits.
It's tea time apparently, Dr. T.
It's always
being
tea time.
afraid of change and referring to losing home grow rights and referring to losing your local dispensaries as being afraid of change is a little short-sighted. Like, being able to grow your own medicine when you have a plant that can provide you medicinal value is definitely a human right and is important. When you say losing your local dispensary, that's very short-sighted in that losing your entire cannabis industry, which then puts how many people out of jobs, which then changes what, So I think that while reschedule may be progress in some things, like, it's way too detrimental to be a positive solution. And I think that, we have done a terrible job historically as a cannabis industry of taking a bad solution. And then what do? We bitch about it. We're like, oh, shoot, I wish I wouldn't have done that. When we're sitting here screaming, please don't put your hand on the stove. It's hot. Why would we put our asses on it?
Well, here the stove is not hot. My point was that we will not lose homegrown. We will not lose cannabis dispensaries in rescheduling. It's not a decrease in restrictions. It's a decrease. There's nothing in the law in rescheduling that affects the state's right to continue their cannabis.
Yeah, there is. There is. There's the FDA involvement with the Food, Drugs, and Cosmetics Act.
Agency.
The Food, Drugs, and Cosmetics Act.
Schedule 1 is more restrictive than Schedule 3.
I agree.
Are you selling cannabis?
I agree, but hold on, Dr. T.
Why are you not restricted from selling cannabis?
I'm gonna tell you.
A lot of people.
I can break this down for you super fast, super easy. So right now, under a Schedule 1, the only people that have jurisdiction over Schedule 1 drugs is the Drug Enforcement Administration and the Justice Department. We have that tabled with Rohrabacher-Farr, which is the federal appropriations bill that prohibits the DOJ and DEA from extrapolating federal funds to go after state licensed cannabis businesses. Once it gets moved to a Schedule 2, 3, 4, or 5, then at that point, the FDA has jurisdiction over that substance, and the FDA regulates everything by the molecule as opposed to the actual substance. And then you also have the Food, Drugs, and Cosmetics Act, and every single product on every single shelf would fall under that because every single product is either considered a food, drug, or a topical. And so therefore, everything would be eliminated, in my opinion, under any rescheduling whatsoever. The only answer is to deschedule. The only thing that benefits anything in rescheduling scheduling is the amount of research that can be done for researchers, and that's pretty much it. And they're already doing research, and just like this study pointed out, we just got research done without having any rescheduling done.
We also have access to cannabis without having rescheduling. In other words, it wouldn't change.
It would. It would.
If you're saying that Schedule 1 is prohibitive, you can't federally sell. FDA is in charge of Schedule 1.
FDA has no jurisdiction over Schedule 1 because it has no medicinal value, so therefore they have no jurisdiction over anything Schedule 1.
The FDA can approve your ability to have Schedule 1 products. That's possible today. That's how I can get access to Schedule 1 products by making a long application.
I agree with that. I agree with that. And then you would get it from the University of Mississippi under a NIDA thing. I agree with you on that one kind of nuance. But the reality of it overall is that for substances in the general public, the FDA has no jurisdiction over that because it is, in that sense, it is deemed no medical value.
I don't,
and that's why we have a Drug Enforcement Administration that deals with all that, and that's why the DEA has total jurisdiction on Schedule 1 drugs.
The Controlled Substances Act creates the scheduling. The FDA operates with the Controlled Substances Act. They allow you to do research with cannabis. It's very restrictive. And Schedule 3 would be less restrictive.
For research.
You sell cannabis today. Patients are able to access cannabis.
People are able to access it. Yes, that's correct. But we also
Schedule 1.
Yes, but we also did that. But we also
changing the Schedule 3 wouldn't change that.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would, because then it would bring the FDA as a governing body into that, and no one is going to get a DEA license to sell a Schedule 3 drug from the FDA.
Now. The FDA is governing now.
I don't know about all that.
They do.
I don't know.
That's how you get Schedule 1.
Go for it, Dr. Mark. I've seen you agree with me, and then I've seen you little things, so I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this.
Well, no, the FDA has completely dropped the ball, especially when it comes to legalization of hemp, because the FDA enforces something called the FD&C Act, right?
Mm-hmm.
Food, Drug, and Cosmetics Act.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah,
and so they can. You know that Congress was snookered on the Farm Bill because they didn't even contemplate a route to market for CBD because it is in violation of the FD&C Act. Put an active ingredient of an FDA-approved drug, pharmaceutical, whatever you want to call it, something that's approved by the FDA through clinical trials. It is prohibitive, that active ingredient, and put it into food, feed, or cosmetics. So food, tinctures, sodas, gummies, feed, dog treats, dog food, whatever, cosmetics, topicals, right? So therein lies the nascent CBD industry. I think Epidiolex plays a role in this because they've made a sizable investment in the clinical trials. And I see Dr. T nodding. Thank you, Dr. T. A sizable investment in getting CBD Epidiolex through clinical trials. In all truth, we knew that those clinical trials were going to be effective because Meshulam had showed this back in 1980 that in rare forms of epilepsy like Dravet syndrome and Lennox-Gastaut and things that you can't treat epileptics with current anti-epileptic medicine or anti-seizure medication, that CBD works in those cases. The thing is normally a pharmaceutical company that spends money to take something through clinical trials would have a patent on the active ingredient. That's where this thing comes unraveled because CBD is a known public composition since the time of Roger Adams. So Epidiolex doesn't have a patented active ingredient, or else they would basically send those people to basically shut down the CBD industry. But I think the crux of the matter is that FDA has even recognized, and Dr. T, tell me if this is right, that they really need a new regulatory mechanism within FDA for the allowance of botanical medicines like cannabis, right? And they even said that. So when Charlotte's Web tried to petition the FDA to get cannabis, or I think it was just CBD, listed as a dietary supplement, right? They tried to push it through the dietary supplement. They said no. Jason, you're absolutely right on one respect, which is that the DEA, which is basically enforcing the laws under the Controlled Dangerous Substance Act, in this case, there's overlap between the FD&C Act because of this whole hemp thing. The hemp thing is a really interesting thing because, again, you're still producing THC, you're still producing cannabinoids, there's still psychoactivity. You know, people will say that CBD is not psychoactive. You know what? When I drink a CBD beverage, I could feel psychoactivity. I could feel kind of like this calmness that washes over your the stress that you're having in that day. So to me, that's psychoactivity. But, you know, again, going back to, I think, what Dr. T's point was, which is that, you know, I think the most important thing, Dr. T, about the move does go from 1 to 3 is now they've admitted that there's accepted medical use. Dr. T and I have talked about this on High at 9 News. Like, if you look at the U.S. government patent that shows that CBD is neuroprotective, yes, it's neuroprotective. When that data was put in front of the USPTO, they granted those claims on that United States patent. And they don't care about the CSA. They don't care about the other laws. They just say, here's the data. The data shows that, yes, you can protect nerve cells and brain cells and glia cells with CBD. But I think where, again, Dr. T has kind of schooled us all is accepted medical use is what the language is in the CSA, right? So we could demonstrate medical use. And in fact, my paper today is going to talk about cancer. There is certainly a notion that accepted medical use is only when you go through the throes of clinical trials that can now be in an approved, FDA-approved drug that now doctors can prescribe. I think, Dr. T, that's what you said before around accepted medical use means that it's gone through clinical trials, right?
Yeah, it needs to go through through the clinical process. And cannabis is different than CBD. Cannabis is different than THC. The FDA has a problem regulating cannabis. They don't have a problem regulating THC or CBD.
Like if a patient were to come in and complain of, say, chemotherapy associated nausea, Dr. T, would you prescribe them Marinol pill, or would you tell them to just go to the local dispensary and get nice? You know?
I'd tell them to go to local dispensary. I'd explain what they're going to find in the local dispensary. Definitely, more because it seems to be more effective. I've had patients who've had an opportunity to use both Marinol or the flower, and they always prefer the flower as more effective.
And it's not like the owners of the Marinol drug, I don't even know who that is, it's probably Bayer Pharmaceuticals, something like that, right? Can actually come after the cannabis industry for selling THC, their active ingredient of their FDA-approved drug, right?
Well, it's a synthetic THC, so it's not actual THC. I think that's kind of the loophole with that, is they have a synthetic version of it. So it's not,
molecule doesn't have a memory from where it came, you know.
But a synthetic molecule is not exactly like the original molecules, and so their patent would be on the synthetic version as opposed to the actual natural version.
Well, right, and what Dr. T can admit, and I'm sure we all know, is that full spectrum medicine, which contain the minor cannabinoids and the terpenes and the flavonoids and all the other things that are in there, is much more effective than just the single purified active ingredient. And I think that's exactly the reason why FDA needs a separate mechanism for evaluation and approval of botanical medicines. And I see Dr. T nodding, so
100%. Yeah, they have a mechanism. It's just really poorly written. It treats plants like isolated ingredients together.
Yeah, I mean, to speak to something that Jesse had talked about a couple months ago when we were talking about RFK, what we thought was that RFK, because I think he recognizes that there's this revolving door between big pharma and the FDA. So the people who make the medicines and the people who regulate the medicines, right? There's this revolving door. You know, people go from this salary to this salary, and they go from working for the government to working to this drug company and whatnot. That maybe RFK was going to be like, all right, we need to do away with that. This revolving door between big pharma and the FDA, which is supposed to regulate big pharma. Maybe that's still up his sleeve.
That's a tough one. Big pharma is always going to hire former regulators to get their products pushed through.
And before we move on, this is fascinating conversation. I'm really glad that we got into this. Thank you so much for covering this, Dr. T. But Nick Bradley is asking a question in the chat. He wants to know the appropriate dosage for full spectrum CBD for seizure suppression.
Dosage is usually measured in weight. For what? For
seizure suppression, yeah.
Oh, well, the dosage that was used in this study varied. Some of the people were using CBD, type 3. So this was full spectrum CBD. I believe the ratio is around 20-1. Yeah, it was 50 milligrams CBD, 4 milligrams of THC. And then there was a type 1, which was just THC, no CBD. And then there was flower. People were smoking flower with this study too.
Wow.
About a third. So a third were using tincture, a third were using flower, and then a third were combining the two.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much for all that fantastic information, Dr. T. We're going to roll into our next commercial, and we're going to be right back. Stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you smash that like button. I know we'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it, and YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show, you can read directly on our website at www.highat9news.com. And make sure that you use the link in our description of this video and order yourself a case of Liberal Tears sent directly to your house. Fantastic energy beverage. Comes in flavors of Patriot Peach. Dr. Mark loves this stuff. There's no snowflakes involved with this. No liberals were hurt. Just a lot of feelings and tears to quench your thirst. 150 milligrams of caffeine in every can and no sugar added at all. I just ordered the summertime strawberry salad when added steak on top here at Anna's. Make sure you do the same thing too next time you're in downtown Long Beach. Come on down and check out Anna's joint on the 400 block of Pine Street. They have amazing selection of beers, foods, and when you come down here to Anna's, you can even challenge me to a game of shuffleboard if you want to lose. Did you get that? So, next time you're in downtown Long Beach on Pine Avenue, make sure you stop by Anna's Joint on the 400 block. Not only do they have Anna's Joint, this restaurant and bar, but they also have the amazing deli next door, and then next door to that they have a very exotic flower shop. You may want to stop by and say hi.
Nicole.
Yes. Oh, and we are back, you guys, and we are going to roll right into Dr. Mark Scialdone. He's a chemist. He can discover compounds and patent them and all the fancy stuff, and he's coming out from the great Champlain region of Vermont in the Green Mountain State. That's right, it is none other than Dr. Mark Scialdone.
Thank you, Jason, and happy Friday, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great week. Hope you got some great weather on this spring weekend, the first weekend of May. Can you believe we're in May already? This is awesome, right? Right. So no more snow up here in New England, and we're going to see all the leaves start to come out and all the flowers and blossoms. So yeah, looking forward to spring. Hope cannabis is in your plans for this weekend. It's in my plans. And today I'm going to talk about an exciting story. It's always exciting when there's new discoveries made. And Jason pointed this out to me. I saw this on a friend's feed yesterday, but it's entitled, it's from the Marijuana Moment from Ben Adlin. And it says, researchers announce they've discovered a new cannabinoid in marijuana. Okay, stay tuned to this, right? Researchers have announced that they've successfully identified a new cannabinoid. I'm going to try to say this. Cannabidiol-soxa. Cannabidiol-soxa. I don't know where they come up with these crazy names. Produced by the marijuana plant, as well as a number of other compounds reported for the first time isolated from flowers of cannabis sativa. So the team of government and university researchers out of South Korea, they had 14 authors on this paper, okay? Imagine if me, Dr. Mark, can collaborate with 13 other Dr. Marks. Oh boy. I'm always envious when I read a paper like this in the literature, Dr. T, because I'm like, man, I need 13 collaborators that I could collaborate with. Maybe I could do something useful for a change. Okay, so the team of government and university researchers out of South Korea. Hold on, let's talk about South Korea for a second. So South Korea, cannabis is illegal for recreational use. Its cultivation and possession are strictly prohibited, carrying penalties of up to 5 years in prison. They have recently approved it for medical applications, but they have a very, very strict use on it. Sounds like one of those regulations where you almost have to be dying in order to get it from a doctor. So anyway, that's South Korea. So they evaluated 11 compounds for its anti-tumor effects against neuroblastoma cells. Neuroblastoma is part of the functional aspect of something called glioblastoma multiforme, which is a very aggressive form of cancer. It often appears not only in adults, but it also appears in children. And it's known that cannabinoids, in fact, CBD, is really effective at killing these neuroblastoma cells. So the authors said the findings represent an initial step toward developing a product for the treatment of neuroblastoma. Cancer, they note, that is most common in solid tumors in children and frequent malignancy in the first year of life. So published this month in the Journal of Pharmaceuticals, the paper says researchers use chromatographic techniques to isolate the compounds. Okay, so let's talk about chromatographic techniques for a second. So what you're doing is you're separating compounds based on the different properties of the compounds. In most cases, chromatography uses differences in polarity, but there's also something called size exclusion chromatography, which uses the different size of molecules. So there's different chromatographic methods you could use to basically take a very complex mixture, like an extract from a cannabis plant, and fractionate it into different individual pure components. So they examined the molecular structures and used metabolic testing method to assess toxicity to neuroblastoma cells. This study successfully isolated a new cannabinoid and 6 other known cannabinoid compounds, along with a new chlorine-type compound. Chlorine-type compounds are very similar to things like pigments. So think of things like chlorophylls and even the pigment in our blood, which is hemoglobin. there's a lot of structural homology between hemoglobin and things like pigments like are found in plants. So they studied these compounds. Let's go right to the paper. Let me read you the abstract from the paper itself, because it is a fascinating paper. So again, there's 14 different authors, probably all PhDs, at 7 different institutions. So that's a pretty widespread team of people. So the abstract reads, cannabis sativa has been utilized for medical purposes for thousands of years. Don't you love when you hear that, Dr. T, right? Right at the beginning of an abstract, it says that cannabis sativa has been used for medical purposes for thousands of years. It continues to be recognized as a plant with extensive variety of medicinal and nutraceutical uses today. In this study, a chemical investigation of flowers of cannabis sativa were isolated by using chromatographic techniques, which led to the isolation of 11 compounds. These purified compounds were evaluated for anti-tumor activity against KNSH neuroblastoma cells. The compounds were isolated using chromatographic techniques. I just said that. The structures were identified by examination of spectroscopic methods, including NMR and including mass spec and HPLC. The evaluation of the toxicity on these cells were performed using something called the MTT method. 11 of the compounds that were isolated from cannabis sativa flowers, including the new compound, which is called cannabidiol soxa. And I did everyone a favor and I drew a structure. So this is what the structure of the compound looks like. And what you'll see below is there's a structure of a CBD metabolite called cannabidiolsoin. So if you look at cannabidiolsoin and you look at cannabidiolsoxin, which is the new compound, you can see a lot of structural similarity between these compounds. So the conclusions are the evaluation of the biological activities of these compounds could be considered as potential compounds for the anti-tumor effects against neuroblastomas. This is highlighted by doing molecular docking analysis. So what they do is they have various proteins that are targets on these neuroblastoma cells, and now they can computationally dock the compound, kind of like the way a boat would nestle up to a dock, to see how well these things fit into these receptors. Additionally, results of this study also suggest that these compounds have the potential to be developed into anti-neuroblastoma products. So, again, just another demonstration of the anti-tumor effects of some of the compounds that are found in cannabis. I find this to be, again, reinforcing to what we have already known. Manuel Guzman, most particularly in Spain, has shown that cannabinoids like THC and CBD basically kill cancer cells. So is cannabis a cure for cancer? Can cannabis also be part of that regimen? I'm sure Dr. T will recognize this as someone going through chemotherapy who loses their appetite. Cannabis can help gain some of that appetite back. Cannabis can help people get through chemotherapy a little bit easier. I know several people who've been through chemotherapy and they claim that cannabis helped keep them alive during that excruciating process. So that's my paper today. I'd be interested in what you think about this, Dr. T. I mean, we're finding, again, more and more researchers that look at cannabis and cancer, the more we find studies just like this, where some of the compounds that are isolated are effective at killing these cells in petri dishes. Now what we need to do is develop the medicine that can work in humans and not just kill the cells in the petri dish. But Dr. T, do you have any comments on this article?
Yeah. What 3 letters are they using for this one? CBS?
CBSX or something. I don't know.
CBSX.
Yeah, I don't know.
Soup. Yeah.
Yeah, part of the alphabet soup. But
But this could be one of the reasons why, broad, full spectrum products are better than isolates. It may be contributing to the synergy.
Entourage.
Yeah, the entourage.
The entourage effect. That's right. So maybe this compound, which is only in trace amounts in cannabis, could be one of those trace amounts of compounds that normally wouldn't get through a clinical trial at a pharmaceutical company, right? Which would just look to identify a single component, and then we put that single component into a tincture or into a pill or into something that could be administered intravenously, right? So it's just a single ingredient. But if anything, the cannabis plant teaches us that there's medical value to the full spectrum of everything that's in there. And this new cannabinoid that they isolated, like you point out, might be part of that story.
Take the village of cannabinoids to be truly effective.
Yeah. I find it interesting that this work went on in South Korea, again, where if you're smoking a joint on the corner, you can go away for 5 years. You know, you'd like to think that, again, there's a little bit of maturing of a society like that to think, you know, this is not North Korea, we're talking South Korea, that they would recognize that, yes, there is medical value and that they should, you know, create regulations and laws that provide access to the people in South Korea to cannabis.
Well, this is coming from pharma. This is a pharma study. That's why they had so many docs on there. This is only pharma could afford this type of study. They're looking for the isolate. Right?
Yeah, actually, there's a fair number of people here are actually with the South Korean government. Like there's the Institute of Pharmaceutical Research, College of Pharmacy at a university. And there's so, yeah, I agree with you, Dr. T. But I think the other interesting aspect about this is that when this happens in places other than the United States, you have to think that, again, Trump's shutdown of the NIH is causing, you know, us here in the U.S. to kind of fall a little bit behind. I really hope that they unpause this thing at the NIH, because right now it's affecting me personally because I've been awarded an NIH grant, but until that money comes in from the NIH, that's just a piece of paper, you know? So let's put the pressure on our law or on our people that are running Washington, D.C., other than the administration itself. Call your congressmen, call your senators, and get them to undoge the NIH, because the NIH funds very, very fundamental research that keeps the U.S. as the leader in the world for biomedical research. And I'm afraid that just even pausing it for a few months is going to cause irreparable damage for years to come.
You got any thoughts on this, Jesse?
It just sounds really cool. I mean, it's cool that we're finding more cannabinoids still this late in the game. It just keeps going on. I'm sure that this cannabinoid does a lot of really cool things. Dr. Mark, it sounded like you were saying this, it does potentially kill cancer cells.
Yeah, well, that's what this data recognizes. What they don't say in this paper, I thought maybe they would shed a little more light on how much of this compound was isolated. So I believe it's just a trace amount. And when I look at the structure, I would tend to think that this could be a secondary metabolite. So I think this compound itself could be derived from CBDA. So if CBDA is under the right metabolic conditions, it could turn itself into this. But again, this is the wonderful thing about the cannabinoids that are in the plant, is that they create new compounds on aging, or new compounds, as you know, El Soli identified all these new compounds on the cannabis at Ole Miss. One of the reasons why is because the cannabis down at Ole Miss got moldy. The mold starts metabolizing these cannabinoids, and now they find all these new molecules. Well, maybe some of these metabolites, like these compounds, could be more interesting than the compounds from which they're derived.
That's the same way they found penicillin too, isn't it, Dr. Mark?
Well, it kind of.
I mean, mold's involved.
Yeah, penicillin is basically a molecule that's emitted by one fungus to keep other fungus from taking its food supply. So it's kind of
it's the bully fungus
wars. But I understand the analogy you're making, which is sometimes it's not just the principal components, but it's what gets metabolized. And I see Dr. T nodding. What we know is that 11-hydroxy THC, which is one of the principal metabolites of THC in the body, is actually more active at CB1 than THC itself.
Wow.
Yeah, really cool.
Very cool stuff. Very cool. Thank you so much for covering this today, Dr. Mark. I knew no one could explain it as good as you,
anytime,
man.
Jason.
This is fantastic. And on that, we're going to roll into our final commercial, and we are going to be right back.
Oh man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, my left one, you know? But I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade, and in a GMP certified facility. So you know you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where I'm even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Tested. It's not a
beverage is so expensive. Oh, and we are back, you guys. And coming up next, it is Mr. Jesse Barney. He is the latest grandfather to grace the stage over here at the High at 9 News, and he is the founder of Barney Design Co., a company that can help elevate your brand to new plateaus. That's right, it is Barney Design Co., Mr. Jesse Barney.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, I think I'm the youngest grandpa.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. At 45. Started early. I started early. My wife started early. Between our blended family, I think we're going to have quite a few grandkids next.
Nice.
All right. My story is really cool and really short. A bipartisan group of Maine lawmakers filed a bill today to establish a separate regulatory path cultivation with licensing fees significantly lower than those for indoor growers. How's that for a headline? The legislation, titled An Act Regarding Sun-Grown Cultivation in the Medical Use and Adult Use Cannabis Industries, is sponsored by Representative Gray Osher D, and co-sponsored by a diverse mix of Republicans and Democrats from both legislative chambers. Look at that. Both sides of the aisle getting along on this one. The proposal has been referred to the Committee on Veteran and Legal Affairs. If enacted, the bill would officially define sun-grown cultivation, quote unquote, and sun-grown cultivator, quote unquote, in state law, applying to those who grow marijuana outdoors using sunlight as the primary light source and limited electricity. The proposal includes increased plant count and canopy allowances for these cultivators, along with new registration fee structures tailored to outdoor operations. For the adult use industry, sun-grown cultivation would be subject to a separate licensing fee structure, typically set at a lower rate than indoor operations. For example, a Tier 4 sun-grown cultivation facility would pay a maximum license fee of $15,000 compared to $30,000 for an indoor equivalent. On the medical side, sun-grown caregivers would be allowed to grow up to 150 mature plants or use up to 2,500 square feet of canopy per year, substantially higher than standard allowances under current law. New provisions also include updated rules for cultivation security, a 30-day grace period for new staff pending identification card approval, and repeal of certain existing restrictions such as the prohibition on cannabis collectives and mandatory yeast and mold testing for adult use products. With Maine's outdoor growing season and longstanding agricultural traditions, supporters of the bill argue that it promotes sustainability, economic opportunity, and environmental efficiency within the state's legal marijuana sector. That's the story. Sounds really cool. I like what Maine's doing. I'm not sure that there's another state that has legally defined this in their state law like this. I'd be glad to hear if there is, but this seems like a first to me, and a really great step in the right direction for Maine to promote the right type of growing that promotes sustainability and also high quality flower.
Mm-hmm. I know Dr. T is going to be super happy about this story. I see you grinning from cheek to cheek right now, Dr. T. What do you got to say about this?
Hey, I'm not a lawyer or a government regulator, so yeah, I don't. But hey, anything that promotes sustainability, I think that's in the spirit of the plant. The plant's spirit wants us to be sustainable, so I think we're doing her bidding.
I can agree with that, but it's interesting to me because it's not like Maine is like the best conditions for outdoor cultivation. I mean, it gets pretty Arctic up there, and their growing season's pretty short. Dr. Mark is the closest in Vermont to Maine. I mean, what do you got to say about these growing conditions for these outdoor farmers out there? They're going to be doing more tilling of snow than they are of grow.
There's parts of Canada that are more south than Maine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, but Maine has a pretty robust, I think it always had like a legacy market there.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of production going on up in Maine. I know I was just reading something this morning where they tied one group in Maine to the Chinese Communist Party. So like that whole notion that the Chinese are coming over and
it's been happening up there. That's for sure.
Yeah, so that's happening up there. But I think they have a pretty progressive, they did the growing cooperative model up there during medical.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean by the growing cooperative? So, so you can basically grow a certain number of plants for patients, and any additional beyond this, kind of like the way Michigan did, you're able to sell as long as those sales were in the state. And I mean, I know like my friend Jen Doe, who's a pretty well-known hash maker, she's up there making hash. So I think they have a pretty sophisticated market around concentrates. And I think
do they
Maine
harvest in Maine, Mark? When do they harvest?
Well, yeah, so that's what I was going to get.
I thought they only had 1 month without snow.
Pretty short growing season. It depends where you are. If you're in coastal Maine, it's pretty temperate. Certainly up in the woods, it can get pretty cold. They often have early frosts in December. So when you start getting frosts in December and you're in that late flowering period, I mean, you're hedging your bets. You want to try to get as much biomass as you can and get as high a potency of flower as you can. But you're up against, Mother Nature. She comes with one night of frost, and now you're out, getting your plants. I mean, for the most part, the oils of the cannabis plant will actually somewhat protect it from frost. But I know that it's certainly a challenge to grow in northern climates. I've talked to people.
They're probably not growing sativa types that are usually longer cycles.
Well,
what did you think?
Oh, go ahead, Dr.
What do you think? They're probably doing a lot of this, like in glass houses and in controlled.
That's not real outdoor, though. That's not real outdoor.
An outdoor.
That's not real. That's greenhouse. That's not real outdoor.
Does the law specify that, Jesse? That it can't be in a green.
It doesn't say
pretty
anything
clear.
What it said in the article is that if they use sun as the primary light source, so I would assume that involves some kind of greenhouse activity as well. Open air greenhouses are relatively the same as sun grown. The only difference is
that considered outdoor and say like in California?
Not
No.
not by customers or by like
Not by
heads,
not
like
by
people-
traditional standards, it's not, and not by my standard, it's not. If it's outdoor, it's just outdoors. If it's in a greenhouse, it's called greenhouse. If it's in a hoop house, it's called hoop weed. Okay,
But
and
I
if
don't-
it's
I don't
indoor,
think
it's
that
indoor.
I don't think that this legal definition that they're creating cares about what Jason thinks.
Well,
I think that
They should.
they're trying to define it as the primary light source. So
Right.
which totally makes
So-
sense. If you have a greenhouse and the primary light source is the sun, you're
They
not
shouldn't-
using
It's the sun.
lights.
They shouldn't
It's
call it.
sun-grown.
They shouldn't call it outdoor weed. Then they should just call it sun grown.
They're not calling it that. They're calling it sun grown.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I guess that's fair.
Yeah.
I guess that's fair. They're
It's
calling it sun
sun-grown
grown.
cultivation and a sun-grown cultivator. Those are the legal terms
Mhm.
that they're creating.
Interesting.
Which is great.
Yeah. Interesting.
But Jason, are you aware of any other states that have done that, created a legal definition for sun-grown cultivation?
Well, I mean, California here, they try to do the whole Appalachia thing, you know what I'm saying? And so I think that would probably be the closest to something like this, but this is the first state that I've seen that has done it in this manner.
Yeah, I think it's the first state
Yeah.
creating a legal definition for.
Yeah, shout out to Maine for
Which is
this,
really
and
cool.
you know what I'm saying. I do think overall that this is a really cool story. You know what I mean? I do think that it's cool. Whether or not it's sustainable is a whole nother story, but you know what I mean? It's cool. Couldn't help myself, Dr. T. I'm sorry. Oh man. Well, I have a great story to close out with you guys today on this Friday for the weekend. I think you guys will find this fairly entertaining, you guys, because a turkey leg hut sold hundreds of pounds of marijuana using bags branded with a restaurant logo, the FBI says, you guys. Have any of you guys ever been to a turkey leg hut? Apparently they're over in the Houston area. Before it closed last year, the Turkey Leg Hut was famous for its oversized and smothered turkey drumsticks and for the crowds and celebrities to its Third Ward location. But amid new criminal charges against one of the restaurant's co-owners, federal authorities say they believed more than just a meal was being sold out of the Alameda Road Eatery. An FBI agent testified Thursday that the restaurant was also used to store and sell large amounts of marijuana. On Thursday, lawyers representing former Turkey Leg Hut owner Lynn Price and the Justice Department argued over whether he could be released on bond until his criminal trial. As part of the detention hearing, FBI Special Agent Deborah Klein testified about evidence collected by investigators during the course of the agency's year-long investigation into an arson at Bar 5015. Look at that. We got another Molotov cocktail sighting going on today. Lynn Price is accused of hiring 4 men to set fire to the bar, which is owned by his former business partner. The hearing revealed new details about the alleged arson, but also allowed prosecutors to air other allegations in an attempt to sway a magistrative judge to keep Price behind bars. One of the allegations that Price had California-grown marijuana brought to Houston and then sold it out of Turkey Leg Hut and the Daiquiri Hut, another now closed establishment at the same address. Klein testified that the information about the drug sales came from John Lee Price, one of the other men charged in the Bar 5015 arson, and John Lee Price allegedly told the FBI agents that he worked for Lynn Price and that one of his jobs was moving marijuana from California to Houston. John Lee Price admitted to transporting hydroponic marijuana to the Turkey Leg Hut, Klein said. As much as 1,000 pounds of marijuana was stored at the restaurant, she said. The restaurant was protected by security guards 24/7, which was part of the reason the drugs were kept there, Klein said. And Klein said that the weed was sold out of the restaurant in bags branded with the Turkey Leg Hut logo. During cross-examination, Klein said there was no evidence that Lynn Price was directly involved in hand-to-hand drug sales at the restaurants, and prosecutors, however, referred to Lynn Price as an orchestrator and a person, in quotes, who tries to keep his hands clean. Neither Lynn Price or any of the other men have been charged with drug-related crimes connected to the Turkey Leg Hut. And John Lee Price in 2023 was indicted on federal drug charges in Mississippi after he was stopped while towing a horse trailer carrying 26 pounds of fentanyl-laced pills. That's not good. Following Thursday's hearings, Lynn Price's attorneys declined to directly address the drug allegations, and in a quote, they say, "A lot of things were brought up that we didn't necessarily agree with," said Chuck Eggenboe, one of Prince's defense attorneys. They said, well, that's the job of a good defense attorney, is to, you know what I'm saying, say that this doesn't make sense, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this. Have you guys ever been to a turkey leg hut and got some little extra sauce?
Extra sauce. You're getting a turkey bag at the Turkey Leg Hut.
That's what I'm saying. I was waiting for I was hoping the article was going to say that it sold it in turkey bags. I was going to be like, that is so on brand.
Yeah, it should have. It should have. Just to make it up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, man. I take it you guys have never been to a turkey leg hut.
Oh.
No,
Man,
I think they sell those at Disneyland, don't they? Turkey leg.
Oh, man. Maybe they do. Maybe, man. Maybe Disney's a co-conspirator on this, Dr. T.
I was gonna say, usually like at your local Renaissance festival, right?
Yeah. Medieval nights, or what's that, medieval times, that restaurant where you know what I'm saying, they joust and stuff down for your entertainment, and you only are allowed to eat with your hands.
Right. That's what I think. I just think of somebody in medieval garb walking through a crowd of people just munching on a turkey leg.
Hawaii Sustainable says no jive turkey hash. Oh, they should start a breakfast spot over there at the turkey spot, and you know what I'm saying, turkey and hash. That would be really funny. That'd be a good breakfast right there. Man, you guys. This was a fun story.
Type 1 cannabis or type 3? Was this okay.
Well, they said it was Californian cannabis, Dr. T. So we're imagining it was probably like some, outdoor swag. You know what I mean? Not the stuff that stays in California. The stuff that just gets out, up and out. You know what I mean? Part of the mids crew.
Well, this is trippy. Is this the same place that had the explosion? I'm kind of looking into this. They had an explosion in 2020 and it was closed.
I think that's a different place, because how the article says it basically that through the investigation of the arson at the other place is how they came to this. Yeah. Is basically, someone started snitching. They were like, hey, they're you know what, they're selling weed in turkey bags out of the turkey leg hut. This is such a funny story. When I saw this, I was like, Brian, I gotta share you guys. It's a good funny story to end for the weekend. And you know what I'm saying?
I'm only finding one location.
Yeah, I didn't say it was a chain.
I'm so weird. This is a weird story because it seems like there's one location and they're investigating the same location based on the arson, and they were also selling weed. So that's new meaning to turkey bag and fire.
Turkey bag swag right there, Jesse.
Something's going on down there in Houston. Watch out.
Yeah, something's popping up. I'm surprised there wasn't a sesh that happened over here at this Turkey Lake Palace.
There was.
That would be a great place to have a sesh. That would be hilarious. Anyways, this was fun. Thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry. Huge thank you to Aim High Hemp Distribution, Tested, and Catalyst Weed for the People, helping us keep the lights on over here. And thank you to our correspondents for being absolutely amazing. Thank you to Cannabis Sativa L for giving us a reason to do this every day. And thank you to Cloud Media Partners Anthony out there in the metaverse somewhere. And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. We are America's #1 daily cannabis news show. Thanks, guys.